Welcome into the Best of Five Clubs on Golf Channel. Half of our staff was on the show this past week. Gil Hanse, Brendon de Jonge, and Wagner. We were also joined by one of the best college players in the game, Gordon Sargent. Kyle Porter from Normal Sport joined us. Matt Kendrick, who is the CEO of Good Golf, and Lucas Glover, a U.S. Open champion and a six-time winner on the PGA Tour, all with us. Enjoy the Best of Five Clubs. Look, you're very busy, and I know you're very happy that a lot of people in the design industry are very, very busy. What has changed the most in your mind over the last 10 years with the design industry?
Well, I think there's two things. I mean, the practical aspect of it is sort of this laser technology that exists that allows us now to recreate, reestablish greens, like rebuild the greens at Marion or Winged Foot, et cetera, and put them back within a millimeter of what they used to be. So I think having that technology has opened up a broad spectrum of the work that we can do from a restoration standpoint. Also, I'm sitting in a bulldozer now that has the technology that used to be that you knew in your seat, as they say, what 4% felt like, what 2% felt like, what 1% felt like as you were shaping, and now the computer in front of you actually tells you that you're sitting at 3% or 4%. So from a practical standpoint, all that stuff has just made it easier and maybe to a certain degree cheating when it comes to running a bulldozer. But I think in the industry, COVID has proven to be sustainable, lasting, the impact it's had on golf, the COVID boom. And so what we're seeing is very opportunity to go ahead and get to the place where we can have them show their talents. I mean, you're seeing guys that have worked for Corin Crenshaw, Tom Doak for us, Kyle Franz, Brian Schneider, Blake Conan. Those guys are building golf courses and showing their ability to do that. And I think there was a period of time where really weren't many opportunities for guys. So I think we've got that opportunity now for a younger and talented, Kai Golby, guys who are coming along can build these golf courses and are getting opportunities, which is great.
It is great. And you mentioned all these guys, and the talent level seems to be rising on an annual basis. You mentioned places like Marion and Winged Foot. And look, as I said, your team has been entrusted to do work on more of these places than really anybody over the last decade. And you're a very sensible person. You're very pragmatic. How do you exercise your pragmatism when it comes to what those greens look like when they were built and what green speeds are being asked of by memberships now? And look, 40 years ago, no greens were rolling 10. Now, if they're not rolling 10, you know what happens to superintendents. How do you balance all that?
Well, we certainly still look at keeping the integrity, the architectural integrity intact. We are very, very hesitant to make any alterations, certainly significant ones to greens. We think this laser technology allows us to make minor tweaks, in the 1 inch to switch a grade from 4%, which was pinnable a long time ago, now down to 3 1/4. And so, but that's still, given modern putting speeds, still on the extreme end of the spectrum. And so we feel like with just very, very minor tweaks, we can still keep the integrity of the greens, still keep the challenge of the greens, yet still provide opportunities for superintendents to find hole locations and to move play around. Because when you have greens that are significantly limited as it relates to hole locations, the traffic starts to wear and you create situations where they become problematic for the superintendent as well as problematic for play.
I want to ask you about a couple of projects. One of them is Spanish Bay. The best players in the world were just at Pebble Beach. And that is as valuable a real estate. The entire area is really, you could argue, anywhere in this country, maybe in the world. Give people an update on that project, because again, I know how excited you and Jim and the team are about getting to work on that. When will that commence?
We're looking at a March 26, so just a little over a year from now. We'll be in the ground out there. We recently received some really good news as it relates to the Coastal Commission. I know our entire team Russ Myers, Kevin Murphy, Jim, and I working really hard on trying to be as sensitive as we can to the environmental restrictions on site, and to have cleared that hurdle along with the Pebble Beach company. We're really excited that we've got the green light to get moving forward. So now we're just sort of in the planning, practical stages of how do we build this, who's going to build it with us, and how does it all come together. But you're right. I mean, we're over the moon with that opportunity. I don't know that that opportunity on the Pacific Ocean in California ever comes up again. And so to have that canvas to work on and try to create something truly special, we're very excited about, as well as obviously the relationship with the Pebble Beach company is the gold standard as it relates to golf.
Gil, this past summer, I made a point of driving from South Bend, Indiana to northern Michigan. I love the state of Michigan, and the farther you go, the more enthralled I became with it. The news this past week that you guys are going to do a golf course at Forest Dunes. Give everybody an idea of what the creation is going to look like. Just visualize for us when you're going to get started and what you envision that's going to be.
Yeah, it's in the pipeline. We're not quite sure on a start date yet, but it was just announced. It was with Tom Sunderborg and Rich Mack, the owners, and be great to work with those guys again. They were obviously both very involved at Stream Song,
Yep.
So it's a chance for us to work with those guys, put the band back together, as Rich likes to say. And the site's terrific. Obviously, Forest Dunes got the original Weisskopf course, and then Tom Doak did an amazing job creating the Loop, the reversible golf course, and we're just to the north of the Loop. And I think probably the most interesting topography on the property. So our goal is to build something a little bit different, kind of hearkening back to our days at Boston Golf Club, maybe a little bit of lay board where it's more of a tree-lined golf course, a little more compact in scale. Today golf architecture is primarily big, big, big. This is going to feel like it sits in a really nice landscape with trees around the golf holes, maybe not 50, 60 yard wide fairways, maybe 35, 40 yards. So I think it'll feel a little bit more traditional in its trappings, but it's a great opportunity. I obviously started my career working for Tom Doak in northern Michigan at High Point with a shovel and a rake in my hand. So it'll be nice to be back in that neighborhood with a great opportunity.
You were in Venus, Florida. People want to go, where is that? I could say it's in the middle, and I don't think I would be wrong. Explain, High Grove is a project, obviously you're on site. Give everybody an idea of what this project is, and then I want to ask you a bigger picture about what is happening in the state of Florida.
Yeah, so we're kind of in the middle, where if you go to Port St. Lucie or Fort Myers, and if you drive west from Port St. Lucie or east from Fort Myers, you'll come across Venus, and it's on the sand ridge, same sand ridge, the Lake Wales sand ridge that Mountain Lake is on. It's an amazing piece of property. You would never really think that this exists in Florida. We've got 70 feet of elevation change, really just sort of rumpled, corrugated landscape and covered with orange trees. So we're incorporating not only the beauty of the land and the landforms, but having citrus along the edge of every hole is a different. We have citrus at Ladera, but it's more on the periphery. So here it's an integral part of the golf hole. So I think from a unique standpoint, it's a landscape we've never encountered before. And I think private club, great opportunity to work with the guys here. I mean, Jim and Neil, Kevin and Brett and Steve and Cameron. We got a whole team here, really. Everybody's doing a great job getting it across the goal line. So I think we're excited about what we've got, and I think people will be very pleasantly surprised by what they see when this place debuts.
Gil, the state of Florida, people look, value rankings any way you want, what they were 10 years ago. I can't wait to see what they are 10 years from now. You just completed recently Kinsale. I haven't been there yet, but my understanding, a little bit more intimate setting. And then Apogee, which I have been there. That's a big project. Ultimately, it's going to be 54 holes. So look, you've got two that you just completed in the state. You're working on a third right now. What exactly is happening in the state of Florida?
Well, I think it's again part of the sort of the whole COVID phenomenon, where people came down here to escape certain parts of the country, and they decided to stay. And I think if you look at golf development in Florida, there was a boom period in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then it lay dormant for a little while. And they're almost playing catch up with the amount of people that have moved down here, obviously for the weather and tax situation for some people. So I think it's one of those deals where the development is now catching up with the demand. If you're anywhere in the area where Apogee is, you can't get into a private club there. We're also very, very proud of the park, our
Yes.
public municipal golf course in West Palm
Forgot to
Beach.
mention
So
that.
one, yeah, that one is special not only because of the job we did, I believe, but also the way it's changing lives, the things it's doing in the community,
Yes.
and the opportunities that exist from a municipal standpoint. And then Kinsale over in Naples, same thing. It's hard to get into a golf club over there, and I think Jim and the team did a great job. I mean, I was in and out, but I was in Australia a lot last year, and I think they took a very small, and you said intimate, property and turned it into one of the most fun places to play golf with, some inspiration from Raynor McDonald, but also a lot of Jim's unique takes on their designs. And everything I'm hearing is people are just absolutely loving it. And it's, one of the things which I love about these is it's just golf. We're very fortunate to be involved in just golf-related developments. There's no real estate with Apogee or Kinsale. There's no real estate with Highgrove. So when you can be involved in projects that are golf-centric, that's always a great thing.
Rory is a great elixir. You put him in the mix and then he wins at Pebble and you're going, who wants to talk about slow play? To me, it was more the manner in which he won. Brendon, let me start with you. Stylistically, how he won and where he won, why was that important?
Because it's a golf course that you wouldn't really think suits Rory McIlroy. It's a small ballpark, Pebble. And we saw a more calculated, more dialed back Rory McIlroy, and I think this is what we've been shouting about for a long time right now. This is exactly what we're looking for. If you're a Rory McIlroy fan, there's so much to be excited about from what you saw at Pebble Beach.
He showed a lot of patience off the tee especially, but then when he had the opportunity to take advantage downwind on 14, hitting 7-iron into that green is absolutely ridiculous. We were talking last night. I've hit driver 3-wood 7-iron in as a 3-shotter. I've never seen the 14th hole at Pebble Beach play as short as he made it look.
And that's the thing, everyone talks about Rory's driver is his biggest weapon. He's got to use it. He's got to use it. He's got to use it when he needs to use it. He doesn't have to use it all the time. Holes like 11, he hit a little chippy 3-wood down 11. Rory hits driver on 11, pulls it a little bit, you get in trouble. Then on 13, hit driver, takes all the bunkers out of play, using it where he should. And I thought he showed so much discipline. I know that's a word he used a lot this last week, but there was a lot to like about what you saw about Rory McIlroy.
I'm with you guys. Look, the tee shot on 14, a couple of days. You think back to, I thought the most grown-up shot I've seen maybe the last decade was Gary Woodland's second to that hole. Now, I know it was the marine layer, it was colder, ball wasn't traveling as far, but still, he nuked a fairway metal to get it there. And here this guy is taking a line over those trees, which is just preposterous to consider. And he's hitting 7-iron, but it's picking the spots and being harnessed and having a governor. And the other thing was, guys, and Johnson on Saturday, the off-speed stuff, the soft arms, the exit angle of his shaft not being nearly, I thought it was such an array that was like, oh my gosh, this is like full flight in a different way.
Well, it seems like the last couple of years, starting out on the West Coast, even in Dubai when he won last year, his 3-quarter wedges, his off-speed shots had way too much spin. And in a course like Pebble Beach, when the greens can get a little soft, it is the most testing golf course as far as how can you hit those little off-speed shots into 4, into a lot of those pitch-backed front greens. And he showed a lot to me going forward. Like if he's got those shots, he's got everything.
And Rory's typically not a great win player. I know he won in some heavy wins in Scotland a couple years back, but not typically a great win player. And then for him to go out and shoot a bogey-free 65 in what were the worst of the conditions, that shows a lot.
8 for 8 scrambling Saturday. I thought it was a scratchy start and got through it, didn't get impatient, stayed with the game plan. How about in the big picture in terms of, winning a golf tournament in early February on the PGA Tour? He's never done that before. I was mentioning yesterday, March 4th of 2012 was the earliest he had won on the PGA Tour because he'd always start in the Middle East, didn't play much on the West Coast. How about in terms of what this can mean, big picture?
Well, I think Torrey Pines is going to be just looking 2
Yeah.
weeks away. I think Torrey Pines is going to be a great fit. I think he has this new motto coming out. He wants to be back on top and showing the discipline. I know you and I have talked a lot about Harry Diamond not being able to rein him in, and it looked like, as you said last night, like Harry Diamond's actually reining him in.
Yeah, they came up with a great game plan at Pebble. It's going to be interesting to see moving forward. Is this something that they continue to do? Obviously, a little bit different ballpark at Torrey Pines. There'll be a lot more drivers hit there. It's a 7,700-yard golf course. But yeah, there's so much to like about what you saw from Rory, and not even what you saw, but what you heard as well. The fact that he's kind of willing to check his ego at the door and say, my principal rival, Scotty Scheffler, I'm taking a leaf out of his book. He's starting to play all these bogey-free rounds. I understand I need to play a bunch more bogey-free rounds. I need to eliminate those big mistakes if I want to contend and win the biggest tournaments and get back to the pinnacle of our game.
All right, boys, let's get to Scotty Scheffler. When he doesn't play, it doesn't seem to matter. I get the hero is a short field. We never discounted Tiger winning those years, all those years winning that event. Give me your assessment of what you saw from him first start at 25.
I didn't feel like he'd missed a beat. I felt like he played the week before, picked right up where he left off. Iron play was spectacular. It looked very, very good. I don't think there's anything to worry about Scotty Scheffler's golf game, even after long layoffs. It's just the way he goes about everything. He's so prepared.
Yeah, and it's funny, he led the field in iron play, strokes gained approach. His driver was a little bit off. His short game was a little bit off, but his putting was solid. He was 22nd strokes gained. Like, he'd take that week every week this year, and he's going to win just as much as he did last year. But the shot that impressed me the most was Sunday on 14. I'm going to go back to 14.
Yeah.
He was short of the green, pitching downwind over that bunker, and landed it perfectly with spin to this. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is back. I think he's going to win quickly. So either this week where he's won, or next week, if he wins one of those two, what does that say to the field, so to speak? Is it the kind of thing where you go, here we go again? Not that guys get wrapped up in other guys, but come on. He was so good, and he's so insistent on getting in contention every single week immediately. His scoring average in the opening round last year was first on tour. Like, that's suffocating. If he wins one of these two events, what does that signal?
It is. There's no doubt that those guys are thinking, here we go again. This guy's coming off a historical season, and here we go again. He's right back at it. I think there was almost a little bit of a feeling of that when his name started climbing up that leaderboard last week. Like, people were wondering, how's he going to be after a lengthy layoff? He didn't miss anything.
And if he could have made a few more putts midway through that round, I think things go a little differently. Obviously, Rory kind of separated himself with the putter there, making the turn. But Scotty was right there with a chance. I mean, that's all you can ask for. First week after puncturing your hand with a broken stem of a wine glass, oof, that's scary.
Totally. If he does, do you think he'll win one of the next two? You just said quickly. He will.
Yes.
He's either winning this week or next week.
He's won Phoenix twice already.
Right.
I don't know how much I love Torrey Pines for him. I like every golf course for him, and there's rough in the way he drives it, but I think he's going to win this
You
week.
agree?
I do. I think he wins Phoenix.
Look, this is good. Rory, that's a nice serve to start 2025. If Scotty returns the serve with a clean winner, it's like, okay, now maybe we got something. These guys spent some time together. They did the match. Rory was effusive in his praise of him, taking a page from his book. Who knows? It could be something. Maybe it'd be great if it happens. Let me ask you about the Europeans and their start. Tyrrell Hatton wins an event to start the year. Sepp Straka wins an event. Justin Rose got a great record at Pebble. Shane Lowry contends. Rory wins. Is Europe potentially 1 through 12, and I know it's a long way off, as deep as the United States?
They're closer than they ever have been, but when you look down the world rankings, there is a divide
there. Is.
But I think without a doubt, the European team is as close as they've ever been on paper to matching up with the U.S. Ryder Cup team.
Okay.
I agree wholeheartedly, unfortunately. I was hoping we would disagree on this, but it's the American team still on paper is stronger. I think if you look at sort of 9, 10, 11, 12 of the Europeans, still a little bit weaker. There'll be some names that you won't be that familiar with, but there's certainly that gap has closed a lot. lot.
But with the top half, I mean, being able to sit those first few
Yeah.
sessions, being
Yeah.
able to sit 4 guys, they've always been good at hiding. They've always been good at
They
matching
don't have
up.
to hide as much anymore.
No, I know, but the way they can match up, the way Paul McGinley, the way the captaincies go, they are clearly better at putting pairings together. So it is a little bit scary that they are as close going into this. And the way Rory's talked about wanting to win that, it's the greatest accomplishment, winning away Ryder Cup.
Yes.
I think the American team, U.S. team, has been put on notice. Like
Massive heat on them.
Massive.
The other part about what you said about pairings, to me, the other reason why I think, and again, I get the world ranking thing, I also think it's too easy of a data point. This is not 12 guys aggregating a total stroke play score. This is the vagaries of match play with a partner. They're more flexible. I think when you're more flexible, you exercise more depth. Rory will play with anybody. Whereas I think our team is more rigid, like, oh God, you can't break them up. Why not? Like, why not? I think that is another thing that is a component to their team, which is another strength. We will not break teams up, we'll play with anybody.
Right, or if you get hot like they did with Molinari and Fleetwood in Paris, they'll ride it. And I think a lot of times we've made mistakes when we've had good pairings of switching it up, or when we've had bad pairings, switching it up too quickly. You have way more insight into that than I do.
No, I agree with everything you're saying, but I still think in order to win an away Ryder Cup as it's going to be for Europe here, their stars are going to have to perform. It's going to have to be, Rory's going to have to come out of there with 4 points, 4.5 points, something along those lines. Tyrrell Hatton, same sort of thing. Tommy Fleetwood, same sort of thing. Rahm, same sort of thing. Those guys are going to have to perform. You're going to have to get a lot of points up at the top there. Ludwig, from your big names.
And that's another point about the depth. Rahm is not even on my list when I went through world rankings. But it's
he'll be there.
He'll be there, and it's
Yeah.
hard to put him in there. And Tyrrell, arguably one of the hottest players at world number 8, not even playing events that have decent world ranking points, except with a few, DP World
Sure.
Tour.
Yeah. The other thing is, look, I thought Justin Rose's Ryder Cup door slammed shut and was painted shut 4 years ago. But here he jumps up. He made everything in Rome. You saw it. And here he is. And again, I get Pebble, but I don't see him going anywhere. An event that has gotten much younger. If you look back 15, 20 years at the average age of the teams, particularly the United States team, they were all over 30. Now everyone, for the most part, is under 30. Is Rose a guy that right now, not hard, in ink penciling him in, you give him a good chance to be there?
Oh, he'll be there.
He'll be there.
Either as an assistant captain
But I mean
or
as a
playing.
player.
I think he should be there as a player. I think that experience in that hostile environment, having a guy like that on the team to be able to lead in the team room, not from a captain's position, would be massive.
Yeah, and I think the relationship that Luke Donald and Justin Rose have, Luke knows that he can trust Justin Rose under the toughest of situations, under the biggest lights. I think there's a great chance that Justin Rose will be there. Obviously, a lot depends on how he plays from now until September.
I think one of the reasons why, I think this question, look, it's a great conversation piece to ride for the entire year. I don't think it ever gets old. I don't think people get tired of it. It's such a particular event that people love this dialogue, and we understand it's early. But there are guys that we consider to be the core of the United States team that not only are they not necessarily trending, they haven't won in a while. Explain to me, what is the easiest one to explain away? And I know it's Spieth because he was injured, he was compromised physically, but Cantlay, Thomas, Spieth, Morikawa more recently, but not at all last year. How can the core of the United States team, short of Scheffler and Schauffele, have not won a golf tournament on the PGA Tour in more than a year?
Yeah, I think Colin Morikawa put himself in that position
A lot.
and he seemed to get beat by Scheffler every time he was in that position.
Right.
So I do believe he's going to come out this year. The JT thing is a little bit more befuddling to me. He hasn't won since the PGA in 22. He's putting the time in. He's gotten close a couple times, but he just doesn't have that consistency. Like at Pebble Beach, a place that you would think would fit him really well, I'm disappointed in his performance, especially coming off that second place at Amex. I would have thought he would have put himself in the mix, and he just doesn't get there enough.
JT just hasn't putted well enough to get across the finish line for a while now. Well, a couple things. It shows how hard it is to win on the PGA Tour. That is one.
Sure.
And then when you've got a guy like Scottie Scheffler that's winning essentially half your tournaments, that limits how many are left for the other guys to win. So,
He did win a third, essentially, of their schedule. If you consider that they play between 18 and 20 and he won 7, that's a third of your starts that he's winning. Is Morikawa the guy that you believe in the most to win again, so that when he gets to the Ryder Cup, which he will, he's going to be on the side, will have a win way behind him?
Yes, I do believe that, and I think Cantlay's going to get off the schneid this year as
See,
well.
that's the other one that doesn't make sense, and I don't buy this. Well, he's gotten involved in the politics and the business of the PGA Tour. I don't buy that as an excuse.
It does weigh on you a little bit when you go out to practice and guys coming up to you saying, hey, what about this, and with all the changing, it does affect your preparation. I think Cantlay's got the personality, and he's got Joe LaCava there behind him that can say, hey, he'll talk to you later. We're working right now, but that does have an effect.
Yeah, Morikawa's got to be the guy. He's put himself in these positions for seemingly the last couple of years, just every single week in the big events. And you're right, Scotty's pipped him to the post several times, but yeah, he's going to get a win this year.
Let me give you some other guys who were among the top 6 to 8 players in the world that are ebbing right now. Wyndham Clark, Max Homa. I mean, these are guys who were on that last team. Max was the man of the match for the United States, along with Patrick Cantlay. Wyndham, I thought when he lipped out at the players, he was like making it loud and clear, like, I'm one of those dudes. How about those two?
Wyndham's been the most surprising. Well, it's surprising Max winning 6 times the way he did and now falling off a cliff, changing sponsorships, and I don't know what's going on with him, changing coaches as well. But for Wyndham, I'm with you. He finished runner-up at Bay Hill, and then the players coming off the win at Pebble. We were talking last year going into the Masters that he's going to be the first guy to win in his first Masters appearance since Fuzzy Zeller. So I don't know what's happened. I know he's playing in all these big events, and like Brendon said, man, it is hard to win, especially when you're playing all these top events against the top dogs.
Phoenix, you were just saying to me during the break, everybody who's played Phoenix has gotten heckled. Is this good for the PGA Tour, this event? This is an annual conversation. Look at you guys looking at each other like, I don't know.
I mean, I played there every year, 07 through 13, and in 2012 I was in one of the last couple of groups on Saturday, and it was one of the worst experiences of my life. I mean, it was on the golf course.
You're
it was
soft.
I'm soft. I'm completely, but you know, the 10th green's right there by 16.
Yes.
People are waiting to get in. We're late on a Saturday, and just people shadow puppeting the ball in the green.
Johnson got his feelings hurt.
Yelling at me. I mean, it was, yeah. I mean,
But you do know what you're signing up for. You're signing up for all that debauchery.
For sure. But it seemed like the first couple of years we played, it was kind of exclusively to those few holes around 16.
Yeah, now
and then
it's everywhere.
It was the last couple of years I played. And I wish I had a better attitude about it, because I would love to go back and play it.
I loved it.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I embraced it. As you say, you knew exactly what you were getting into. Now, I would say you wouldn't want to deal with it every week. That would get old really, really quickly. But for 1 week a year, I think it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I was impressed the first time I went to it by really the footprint of it. The scale of it is extraordinary in terms of its size. And I understand that the viewers going, I don't care. I want good golfers playing great, and the atmosphere. I think it's good, but again, it walks such a fine line for an individual player to get badgered, and obviously for people doing things, you know, that you're going, okay, we don't associate that with professional golf.
I mean, it basically has changed everybody's perception of Zach Johnson in a year.
It has.
In a year time, like, yes, maybe he wasn't the greatest Ryder Cup captain, but it's because of that clip from him last year going off on a spectator that now people are like, oh, Zach Johnson, I don't like that guy. He was rude to a fan. Well, he had been getting bombarded for all week, probably by similar people, and he just lost it. And
he didn't help himself when he did it again at Augusta.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I'd almost forgotten about that hole out on 12, and all the way back to the folks on the tee. And he played it off like, what are you talking about? I didn't know. That was actually quite brilliant. That he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The schedule itself, obviously and rightfully, Genesis has been relocated, but in terms of its place, no change at all. Is the schedule set up right, or do they need to make some tweaks going forward in 26 in terms of the cadence of these signature series events?
It seems like they're very front-loaded, but leading into the Masters, it kind of tapers off after that. You've only got Memorial and Travelers, I believe.
Got the Heritage right after the Masters.
And the Heritage, but this is a great time of year. I mean, having Rory just win Phoenix Open into the Genesis and then Florida Swing coming up, I love this time of year. I think there are going to be huge changes going forward in 26 as far as, well, there already are with field sizes and top 100 instead of 125, but I think the schedule is going to take a much different look going forward.
I think it's okay with it being front-loaded because you do have the big events March through August. You know, there is a big event each month. So I think it's okay that we do have what seems like a cluster of these signature events right at the start of the season.
I know how happy you are to be still at Vandy, knowing you've got that exempt tour card when you exercise it after the spring semester. Let me ask you, though, the thing that all of you guys are chasing, and that is a lower score every single day. What do you do to improve the ultimate goal, which is scoring lower, that is a non-technical thing?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, I think being in a college atmosphere, being around 8 other teammates is kind of where you find that. Just having chipping contests. We have our team practices every single day. Just kind of competition, working on those wedges, chipping, putting, all that different stuff. So, yeah, it's definitely easy to get bogged down the technical side, and there's a time and place for that a little bit. But yeah, just being around different guys on the team, having contests against each other, and just trying to just get better at the scoring aspect each and every day.
You know, Gordon, the team part of it, you mentioned your teammates at Vandy, but you've been so good. You've represented the United States on a Walker Cup. You had a great Walker Cup at St. Andrews. You've been on a Palmer Cup team. In an individual sport, and you kind of touched on it, how can a team concept make you better?
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you can do something for other guys, not necessarily yourself, there's a little bit more motivation there. Those team events, Walker Cup, Palmer Cup, you're kind of doing for other guys, but also your country too. And then just the whole team side, it's so much greater reward when you can play well, and that doesn't just affect you, but affects your team as well. So we each motivate each other. We kind of obviously don't want to lose to other teams, but we also don't want to lose to each other. So yeah, that's kind of where a lot of motivation comes. And yeah, just being around different guys that push you each and every day is where the kind of team aspect drives us.
You prepare yourself to achieve. What you can't prepare yourself for is the reaction when you do achieve. When you win an individual NCAA title, as you did as a freshman, what surprised you in the aftermath of that you were not ready for?
Yeah, it was funny. Obviously we still have to go play for that team title the next couple of days, so it doesn't really sink in until a few days later. But it's really just managing expectations. It's easy to kind of get bogged down in success and kind of think you haven't figured out a little bit. And so sometimes, failure's kind of nice. You kind of learn some things, expose yourself, figure out what you need to get better at. And yeah, it was tough. You kind of have a lot more spotlight on you. And yeah, you just have to manage expectations, which is tough to do. You want to have high expectations to perform well, but also not get so bogged down in the results and trying to be too perfect.
When you were 10 years old, college golf was kind of emerging as a viable product to put on television. Now you're on television more. You're doing interviews like this. It's not just the NCAAs. Do you think that all of this time in college, which, like I said, is very different from what it was 10, 15 years ago, has you even more prepared for that next step, which is going to come after the NCAAs?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you see a lot of guys in college that are basically tour pros playing on a college team. There's so many different aspects to where you can kind of prepare yourself for playing professional golf. Guys are obviously playing professional events in college too. So, yeah, I think that was kind of one of the biggest reasons I decided to come back to school, was just being able to kind of have that extra year to really figure out what's going on, figure out kind of how to be professional in college, so that transition's a lot more seamless, kind of get things figured out and hopefully hit the ground running.
you've had a lot of guys that you played with at Vandy that are now having professional opportunities, which speaks to the talent level. And you guys have been so close during your entire time there. And I'm watching these golf tournaments and I'm thinking to myself, my God, they just that last line to cross. Why do you think you guys haven't yet? Is it the vagaries of match players or is something else going on?
It's tough, obviously you kind of sports is interesting as to you play your whole season and then it's kind of like obviously NCAA's, it doesn't really matter what you did in the past and it's kind of just all right there. So you definitely kind of have to take a back seat of kind of what you've achieved and that's kind of where expectations come in. We kind of go in expecting to win and we put so much pressure on ourselves that if we don't win, then it's kind of the end of the world. So I think just playing a little bit more freely. And yeah, obviously match play is tough. You kind of have to, everybody's got to be clicking at the right time. But yeah, I think just for us, trying to really get better each and every day. That doesn't mean necessarily winning golf tournaments every single day, but just, preparing yourself for the future and just being ready to kind of go just get the job done come May and not really worry about what's happened in the past. And yeah, we've put a lot of pressure on ourselves and, I feel like we've done a good job of earning the right to kind of have the expectation to win. But yeah, just kind of playing a little bit more free, knowing that, it's really not the end of the world if we don't win, but yeah, that's kind of what we're all here to do. So just trying to work each and every day to get better and ultimately achieve that goal.
But let's get to Rory because you jumped off. It's always great to jump off with a big name, a big guest, and you did a two-part conversation with him, which was great. So having been around him a lot, having had a lot of conversations with him, how much spring in his step do you think winning where he did, winning in the manner in which he won, gives him to start his year?
Well, I think it's a lot of, he is, as you know, and I think everybody knows, a very emotional person. He gets caught up in the emotions of something like winning St. Andrews, which, on the 150th anniversary, which he was trying to do and obviously didn't end up doing. So I think he's very much the momentum of something can really carry you a long way. And I think what was so interesting, there was a couple of interesting things about his win. And I thought one of them, Gary, was he talked a lot last week at Pebble about emulating Scottie Scheffler. And the phrase that he used last night after winning Pebble, beating Shane Lowry and Justin Rose and everybody, basically the entire European Ryder Cup team. But the phrase he used was, I'm trying to kind of curb my impulses on the golf course. And I think that's such a wise way to go about playing professional golf when you have the level of talent that Rory has. We've seen that with Scottie Scheffler's greatest gift is his ability to manage a golf course. And I think that Rory is more talented than Scottie. Maybe not as good of a distance control, maybe not as good of an iron player, but I think he's got a better short game. He's obviously a better driver because he's maybe the best driver ever. So I think Rory's focus on course management and impulse control, as he called it last night, it's going to be a fascinating storyline to watch because it's an easy thing to talk about when you're hitting it like he was yesterday and throughout the week at Pebble. It's a little harder when things are going sideways at Augusta here in a couple months and maybe it's not going exactly how you want it to go.
Kyle, I thought Saturday was a display. I'm not saying he hadn't done it before, but the arsenal of the off-speed stuff to be analogous to another sport, and small ball as well, which, again, his scrambling stats going into yesterday, he was great on Saturday, holding the round together. I thought his start yesterday was kind of scratchy. We associate him with being the thoroughbred with clean air, that he just picks it up, puts it down, all of a sudden he's won by 15 lengths. I thought that the arsenal, and to your point about the Scheffler comparison, I think emboldens him to show a level of grittiness and more well-roundedness that I think speaks to what you're talking about 2 months from now. When things get hairy and things get sideways, that you can knuckle down and do it in different fashions. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And, Mark Immelman, my former colleague, actually said that on the broadcast. I think it was on Saturday, said this is the most complete I've seen him. Now, is it the best we've ever seen him? I don't know. He was amazing, obviously, when he was winning 3 in a row in 2014. And he's had stretches in his career. I think of I think of Quail Hollow a couple of times. I think of the Canadian Open in, I believe it was 2019. So there's been stretches where it's like, this is unbelievable. But the thing for Rory is, can you keep it together and not put a 7 or 8 on the card on that 9-hole stretch that goes badly? And I mean, look, like, you know, the Bryson thing several years ago where Bryson said, hey, Augusta's a par, whatever he said, 67 or 68. That is actually true of Rory at a lot of these golf courses that you go to. We saw it on 14 yesterday, right? Where there's not a par 5. I mean, these are like short par 4s for him. So he just kind of starts at 3 or 4 under. And then if you don't put doubles on the card, if you don't put a triple on the card, then man, you're almost playing a different scorecard than everybody else in the field, which I think is obviously beneficial to winning a lot of golf tournaments at a high level.
Kyle, I thought the tour for the first time as it relates to the landscape of sports was playing with a full deck, absent of Xander Schauffele, who's a very valuable asset. And so with that full deck, the venue and the leaderboard that got one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest, who's out in front. Scheffler was hanging around, good eclectic group. That's representative of what it can be. But you said last week, and it created an interesting dialogue about entertainment and the choices we now have. What will you be looking for over the course of the next 30 days to show that the PGA Tour is responding to the challenges that they have and the feedback they're getting from their consumer?
Yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily anything that they change over the next 30 days. I do think, you know, there was a good article on golf.com by Dylan DeShare and James Colgan about the tour addressing some of the slow play and the, you know, golf as entertainment type stuff. I think my point was more of, hey, in some of these lesser events, the non-Pebble, the non-Riv, which obviously Riv is going to be at Torrey this year because of the Los Angeles fires. But these non-elevated, you know, maybe lesser events, that's a harder sell if you're the tour when you're going against the seemingly endless content on YouTube of golf on whether it's Fred Egg or Grant Horvat or the Bryan Bros, you know, different stuff that I've kind of watched and consumed over the year. That's really good content. And sometimes the PGA Tour is not great content because you don't have Rory, Scotty, Spieth, JT, you know, all these guys playing Pebble Beach. And so I think the weeks where it's great, it's the best golf product in the world, right? It's Rory winning Pebble. You can't, no YouTube match is ever going to touch that. And players are saying that, and I agree with them. I totally agree with that. It's the 45 or 43 other weeks that I think poses a real challenge for the PGA Tour as it heads into kind of this next post-Tiger-ish phase of its organization.
Scheffler is great, and can his greatness, without his willingness, I find him interesting. I know you do too. If he remains exactly who he is, which he will, can his greatness captivate more people than it currently has?
I don't know. It's a really interesting question. I was thinking about this, and it's almost like I'm a little bit younger, so I didn't experience a lot of non-Tiger and Phil winning at a high level or winning a lot like Scheffler's doing. Maybe it's like a Vijay Singh where it was like, man, he wins a lot, but it's not always super interesting. There's some interesting aspects, but it's not always like, oh, Tiger's in contention or Phil's in contention or even a Rory or a Spieth or somebody like that. I guess the answer is just continue to win at this level and hope people buy in. I mean, here's the thing. If he continues to win 7, 8, 9 times a year, then people like you and I are going to be screaming from the mountaintops. And maybe that brings more people on board of like, you guys don't understand what this guy's doing. This is unbelievable stuff. And I don't know that there's anything. Scotty's not this larger than life personality. I think he's really fascinating when he speaks authoritatively on different topics, which he's done more so, I think, over the last 2 or 3 years. But he's never win is more and more winning.
We had a little glitch there. I think we've got Kyle back now. Kyle, let me ask you, he is an asset because and I'm speaking of Scheffler because I think separation sells. If you're dominant in a sport that is absence of dominance post-Tiger, so to speak, I think there can be traction. But give me somebody who you think's profile is going to be raised because they got to do things. You can't just be entertaining and colorful. Give me a soon future asset to the PGA Tour.
Yeah, one of the guys that I have thought a lot about as it relates to this question is Sahith Theegala. He's somebody that obviously people have gotten to know him from the Netflix show. Him again on Tuesday night against the Frogs, against Rory's Ball Frogs on ESPN. But Sahith is somebody that not only is he a massive personality and really fun to listen to and to be around, he's kind of electric. His game's also gotten a lot better since he was at Pepperdine. You know, it's the year over year. The guy that I always look at with this is Matt Fitzpatrick. The year over year strokes gained improvement. Matt Fitzpatrick went like 11 years in a row where he improved his strokes gained from the previous year, like kind of overall, in like 9 or 10 of those. That's crazy. Guys don't do that. You kind of are who you are once you're 25, 26 and you're out there on the tour. But Sahith is kind of on that track where it's like every year it's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. And he hits the ball amazing. So I think he is somebody that if you look down the road a little bit, 6 months, a year, 18 months, maybe he contends at a major, maybe he wins a major. And I think he is somebody that could be a real superstar on the PGA Tour.
Before I let you go, I mentioned at the top Normal Sport. You were the founder. You wrote the book about it. You know, you look at golf and you realize it is peculiar in so many ways, recreationally, professionally. What are people going to get? What are they already getting? Because I'm a subscriber, if they are, and they should be, if you love golf, to Normal Sport.
Yeah, it's a 3 times a week newsletter, and we look at kind of just all the absurd things that happen in golf. There's a lot of them. I was thinking about this. Rory yesterday, he wins, and then he has to walk to this trailer next to the ocean through like all these cars and write down his score. And that's like the end of this huge $20 million competition. And you're like, what? This is so weird. Like this is such a weird part of golf. And there's a million things like that every week. So we talk about those, but then we go a little deeper. I had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to interview my mom, actually, who was an elite amateur player 40 years ago, 50 years ago now. And so I like to talk to people that were in or that are in or were in golf and just hear their experiences. And we try to say that we use humor and humanity to make the daily golf fans experience feel more meaningful. And hopefully we've accomplished that. And that's what we're aspirationally trying to do at normalsport.com.
As somebody who has an expert understanding of digital media, who built a channel around fishing, when you started to examine market trends, what was it that you saw about golf that made you think it's time to dive in when you did?
Well, first off, I mean, golf is something I've played my whole life and I love. So it was pretty easy to want to try to dive into it. But I think the parallels between golf and fishing are very similar. I mean, both of them are sports that you can play at every age. And it connects across generations. You know, it's a very connecting sport. Both fishing and golf are. So the parallels are very similar. And usually when you're into hobbies, people that get into hobbies such as fishing and golf, or into barbecue, whatever it may be, they tend to go all in and they spend a lot of money in it, and they get consumed by it. So in reality, they're very similar, and so it made a lot of sense to be in both sports.
You know, Matt, when you look at your ensemble of personalities, it works. It's clearly working. How did you figure that out? Because these chess pieces and personalities and understanding Q ratings for an audience that's emerging, that's primarily a younger audience, what were the keys to identifying why these people in a collective could work?
I think that we saw it in fishing first, just seeing like when you start putting personalities together and then putting a brand around it instead of just around one person, that was a key piece to it. But a lot of it too is being in the right place at the right time and meeting the right people. And I think me and Garrett Clark and Matt Scharf and Steven Castaneda, all meeting at the same time was great timing for all parties. And I think all of us getting together and seeing, this is something that could be built and be great. It really worked out. So I think there's part of it too that it is about being in the right place at the right time. It's hard to manufacture something like this, and so it's got to be real and authentic, and that's what we've found with this crew.
Tomorrow night, the Desert Knockout. You will start on the YouTube channel at 7 Eastern, and then you will go live on Golf Channel at 8 p.m. Eastern. The idea of Golf Channel doing it, I think I get it more because I come from that world. I see why it makes sense for them. Does it make the same sense for you, or why does it make different sense?
For us, the YouTube side is extremely important, and that's where we started. And being digital first is always what's going to be at the forefront of what we do. But at the same time, we know that there's a massive audiences in the more traditional TV space for golf, and that's important for us to reach as well. It's much easier for us to go over to the platform that other people are watching and show them our content. And luckily, we've built a great relationship with NBC, and they've really helped us push that goal forward. And so for us, meeting the audience where they are is much better than trying to move them all the way over to YouTube. So for us, it's hoping maybe they watch us on Golf Channel, and then they come over and start watching on YouTube as well.
Matt, the idea of people who are content creators getting time with the biggest personalities, biggest stars in golf, that used to be the ambition from your side, so to speak. Now, clearly, the best players in the world are seeing this inherent value of sharing time with content creators, specifically your group. Why do you think that's happened?
I think everybody now in today's day and age is worrying about building their own brand as well. And I think it's a natural movement to go to platforms like us and be able to get their brand out there. And we're happy to help. I mean, it helps us as well. But I think everyone is being more conscious of their own personal brand, which is important. I think today's day and age, that's what you got to do. And you're seeing it in other sports, not just golf. But I think if you look at some of the other sports, like especially in the college football realm, you're starting to see like all these NIL deals and all these, every athlete is now building their own brand online early on. And it's extremely important. So another piece where we're in the right place at the right time because people are coming to us to get their brand out there.
You mentioned timing. Yesterday, you announced your investment with the TGL team based in LA. These are the 4 people involved there. These are great personalities. They're obviously great players. Why did that make sense for you guys?
Yeah, we want to be at the forefront of everything that's new in the golf space. Like we definitely want to be a part of it. For us, the LA team made a lot of sense, being LA being the entertainment capital of the world, and us being in the golf. Like we feel like we're at the forefront of the golf entertainment side. So us coming together seemed like the right fit. But we will always continue to look to be a part of the newest and best things in golf, and we felt like dipping our toe into the TGL through the team aspect was the right way to start with TGL.
Is it reasonable to think that your group will use that space with that team and have a competition? Look, we've talked about the things that are working in TGL, the things that people think might need to be tweaked. Isn't it reasonable to think that you guys are going to do that?
We actually we got an opportunity to do a video in the TGL arena a few weeks ago, and,
right.
and it went really great on YouTube. A lot of the comments were saying this is exactly what the TGL was supposed to be like, and so if we can come in and help bring what the expertise that we have of being entertaining, and I know that that's what they're trying to do with the TGL, and it gives a little spin on golf. Like we're happy to be involved. From a competition standpoint, I mean, obviously we can't stand up to the best players in the world. Like we're not trying to say we're the best golfers in the world. We want to be the most entertaining. But I think putting our personalities together with players that are on the LAGC team and doing content together is going to be an interesting content piece, and hopefully we get to put that out soon. So we're excited about being a part of it for sure.
For you, I know that your vision, your driving force, it's about content, it's about merchandise, it's about partnerships. As far as the grander thing, as far as what good is, the focus on merchandising over advertising, is that fair, and why?
That is fair to say. For us, it wasn't. I mean, the content is one piece of what we do, and the product side is another piece, and now we're getting into the live event activation side of it as well. All of those are extremely important to us, and from the way that we've set out and thought about Good from the beginning is at one day we want to be a top 5 brand in golf. Like when you talk about the biggest names in Callaway and TaylorMade and Titleist, we want Good to be in that same conversation in the future, and it's going to take time, but we feel like we've put the right building blocks in place. So yes, products is an extremely important part of what we do, and advertising fits in there as well, but we are always very well aware that we want to be pushing the Good brand over everything, and I feel like we've done a great job with that up until this point.
Matt, you mentioned those names, and those are bellwether, OEM brands that people associate going back to the origins, of golf being something that people consume, people participated in. Are there things that you can learn from brands like that that are applicable to what you're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, these brands have been in this industry probably longer than I've been alive. Some of them.
Yes.
So yes, there's absolutely a ton that we can learn from them, and understanding how to speak to a customer that's buying these products year in and year out is a very important detail to understand. And I think for us, it's just we do it a little bit differently than all of them. We do have this media studio side of what we do, and we're able to reach audiences a little different. But the principles of how to build a business from a product standpoint remain the same. So we have a ton to learn, and not only from how to build the products, but how to market it to the traditional golfer.
Last thing, let's get back to tomorrow night, the Desert Knockout. Again, we'll start on your YouTube channel at 7 Eastern, on the Golf Channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. What is a good night for Good? How will you evaluate if it worked?
That's a great question. I think for us, it comes down to that we want our guys to go out there, have fun, put on a great show. We know people are going to tune in and watch. This is exciting for us. This will be our first time on live TV, so we're all very excited about it, and we look forward to seeing what the numbers are. We know what we can do. What we've done in the past through YouTube and through Peacock, and so we have a good gauge of where we are. But we think this one, being the second year that we've done it, should surpass that. So we're excited to see what comes of it tomorrow.
The most interesting fights are when you have a lot of style differences, and Pebble, I think, accentuates that. I know you can't change the schedule, but a lot of people have talked about, what ills the PGA Tour. Places like that, I think, are the best thing for your tour because it doesn't discriminate. It's not biased against one or the other. Is that fair?
It is very fair, very fair. That's a great point. Great courses don't seem to care. They just reward good golf shots and good play. I think with the size of golf courses and the size of courses that we need and have to have for tents, for fans, for grandstands, it makes the old classics harder to get to. And I think that's good and bad. I think it's a good thing because it shows that we need room for all those things I mentioned, but it's bad because of what you just said, is that we don't get as many of the old classics that are just golf. So I totally agree with that. Yeah, and you're exactly right. Style makes fights, and Pebble doesn't care, Harbortown doesn't care, Augusta National doesn't care. You hit good shots, you get rewarded, and that's how it should be.
You have been willing to share your thoughts about some of the decisions that have been made, over the last couple of years on the PGA Tour. I want to get to something as it relates to the idea of trying to curb or address slow play, and it was the idea of size of fields. And I know you felt like I do, like, come on, let's be honest about why we're reducing size of fields. But can a field size have any impact on pace of play?
It can. It can, but we still need to do things that will speed up just the PGA Tour player. Yes, it will help. It's just space and daylight, basically. But there still needs to be measures taken for the brand and for the entertainment value, so it's not fans and TV viewers watching us, stand by our ball and wait. I think that's the biggest issue is it's getting boring for a lot of people, including the players, especially the fast players. It's getting frustrating. But those things I listed last week on my show and a little bit last night on my show, it wasn't picking out any individual. It wasn't picking out any person that does a certain thing. It was just an overall statement of, here's some things I think we could do. I've been catching a little grief the last couple of days from some of my peers and about aim point.
Yeah.
Some of them do it very fast and very well, and that's great. But as an overall thing, those were just suggestions. I wasn't trying to single anybody out or anything like that. There are guys that do it quick, and Reed Green's quicker doing it that way. But overall, the guys that don't do it fast, it's really painful. We got enough people walking up around the hole and around each other's lines, and it can get a little frustrating watching people, walk around the hole, stand there near your line or sometimes through your line. So that's where those thoughts came from for me. It was just some suggestions, not singling anybody out. Never want to do that. But to answer your original question, yeah, field size won't matter that much. The players have to speed up.
Lucas, one of the things you also said was, okay, if we do something where if you really want to get people to get on with it, the idea of popping them a shot is something that's been kicked around a lot. You're the first person who said, what about FedEx Cup points? And I know that you said, you heard somebody else share that thought, but that to me is the best opinion, the most informed opinion. You let it marinate in your mind. You thought, okay, how would you legislate that? The idea of the penalty being points, which, as you know as well as anybody, they're the most precious thing.
Yeah, we've moved away from the money list being the biggest thing that qualifies you for things that year or the next year. Now it's all FedEx Cup points, and rightly so, with FedEx's investment and sponsorship and partnership with the tour, and so that's how it should be. I don't know the number. I don't know that. And again, this was just a couple people mentioned it to me and texted it to me. Or what about this? What about that? And that's the one that really stuck out, is because that's how we're measured now. It's not the money list anymore. It's the FedEx Cup points, and that can hurt. The money doesn't hurt. I mean, the fines and stuff, as hard as it is to say, it doesn't hurt anybody because we play for so much. And I mean, years ago, guys used to budget the fines at the end of the year. They just would budget it in to their expenses. That's a shame. But I don't know the number. I don't know if it's 1 point per bad time. I don't know if it's 100. I don't know that answer. But again, these are just a guy with a new radio show throwing some stuff out there and making suggestions that I think could help. It's my opinion, and that one was like I said yesterday. I gave credit. Rob Waters from Strixon, he's been beating that drum for months, and never thought about it as hard as I did in the last week or so. But that one hit, and I think that could spur some guys on. Is there's an actual consequence to being slow and holding up guys behind you, and making it tough on your playing partners. And I just think it could help everybody.
The thoughts of Rory McIlroy before the tournament last week about scarcity, about how, if you want the heart to grow fonder, go away for a while. And I get the premise, but Lucas, at a time where the workforce is shrinking, I mean, that's what's going to happen. Now we're going to 100. And now the idea of less job sites, so to speak, like less events. There are more guys who can do this than ever before. You know that. Is that the answer?
I don't know. I know my opinion on it, and it's been well stated. Is I don't see how you can have more competition with less people. I've said this over and over. Every other sport has expanded their playoffs, have expanded their seasons, and that's more competition. On the PGA Tour, in the world ranking, from 50 to 750, there's not that much difference. The players are so good and so deep across the world, and especially on this tour, that I can't see how anybody could say having 25 less guys a week is going to breed more competition. That doesn't add up to me. So I disagree respectfully with Rory on that. I disagree respectfully with the tour on that. And I'm happy to continue to beat that drum for my fellow players that agree with me, because I don't get it. And to hide behind pace of play for it, when we haven't done the things that have needed to be done to try and speed up before we cut 25 cards, it doesn't make sense to me. Rory has said he doesn't want to play as much. He played a ton last year to support both tours, get TGL off the ground. I know that man's tired, and he can do whatever he wants. That's his right. If you talk about scarcity and everybody wants to be the NFL in sports, they never go away. Every couple of weeks, they have something else in the off season, whether it's mini camps, the draft, the start of
OTAs,
the start of OTAs. They have something going on to capture their fan and other fans all the time throughout their off season, much less their in season. So, like I said, I respectfully disagree with Rory on that. I respectfully disagree with our decision makers on that. The PGA Tour is an entertainment business, but it's also to provide their membership with the most opportunities. And to cut 25 jobs because we can't play fast enough seems short-sighted to me.
The Signature Series, look, there's probably no event on tour that can survive and thrive being in a signature sandwich. And I'm talking about Phoenix. Signature Series event before, you got one following. And then you got one before the PGA, you got one right after the Masters. Would you tweak the cadence of delivery of this series going forward?
I wish I could tweak it to where they didn't exist, to be honest with you. I'm on record as saying I disagree with them, but I'm also not dumb. I have to play in them because, that's where the most world ranking points are and the most value is if you play well. This field is not what it once was, and that's because of the signature events. That I don't know what they thought was going to happen when they made this series of events and scheduled it the way they did around and for the majors. The other tournaments are going to suffer with their fields. And that was just kind of common sense, in my opinion. And another reason that I disagreed with it a couple of years ago when this was, on the block for voting and all that stuff. And, I vehemently opposed it then. But we're seeing it. Other fields are suffering. I can't imagine a lot of the sponsors are very happy. But, we made our bed in this one.
Hope you enjoyed the best of the week here on Five Clubs. Next week, a lot of guests in studio, including Taylor Zarzour, Tyler Ray, one of the best young, most talented golf course designers in the world, will be with us as well. We'll see you Monday on Five Clubs.